to a Talk IT tutorial on building a simple Java game. So what we're actually going to be doing is lab 2 under designing the architecture. No code is going to be done in this lab. I know, somewhat unfortunate. We'll get onto that in lab 3. So just open it up here. One of the things that you need to understand is this game is actually going to be quite large and it's going to be interconnected, and if you don't think about the architecture of the application now, when you build it, it's just going to be a mess. It's going to be hard to understand and it's going to cause problems in the future. So we're going to be looking at the architecture and I'm going to explain some reasoning behind it. I'm just going to give you some sort of principles that can be followed and for you to look up, have a little read about possibly. So something that I like to look at is the GRASP principles, General Responsibility Assignment Software Patterns, or abbreviated to GRASP. So I've just got the wiki page up here for that. What to say really about this? The two main ones I'm going to talk about is probably high cohesion, low coupling, somewhat information expert. So high cohesion, everything about an object you try and keep with that object. It has a little bit of a fight with low coupling, where you have lower dependency between classes, that the changes in one class having lower impact on other classes. So if I change a getter in this class, it's going to have some effect, but hopefully it's going to be very small and easy to sort of change in other classes. But if I start messing around with it completely and it starts messing with all of these other classes, what we've got is high coupling and they're very dependent on each other, and that's what we don't want. Information expert, what the heck is this? Okay, if you've got the data, I say data, how do I express this? You've got information and you want to put the services or behavior with that information. So example of this could be you've got a monopoly board, you're trying to explain that. You've got the squares for a monopoly board, so the things they can land on, that belongs to the board and only the board should know about that. And so it's sort of the board's responsibility to deal with that. And that sort of information expert or a data access object should be the thing that converses with data from like a database. It shouldn't be the job of the service layer to deal with that. I think that was I'm maybe saying words at you that you may or may not understand, sort of with a data access object being something that is a layer effectively of architecture that would talk with back-end things such as databases like Cassandra or Oracle, and a service layer which is something that does a lot of the sort of manipulation and calculations. And I might as well explain, you also have sort of a controller layer that is like your sort of routing going down to the service layer. Anyway, that is enough of the GRASP principles. You can see it talks about controller there and the idea of that pattern, but I'm going to just leave that. You can read that. So what am I doing? MVC style model view controller. So the view is going to be our interfaces. The controller, it's going to decide on sort of where to send this information, and then the service layer is sort of the model part of it. So like right at the very back where all the real processing happens in this effectively lists and stuff, but we'll go into that as we go into the game. Also a bit of inheritance going on, so we've got game items, so you may have heard me mention in lab 1 we're going to have swords, health, shields, lanterns, gold. They're all items in a game, so it makes sense to have a sort of parent of that called game item. It's useful to think about that now so that we can design that in mind. So I've said turning these into a sort of a eclipse layout with packages. So DoD, the main thing. We've got DoD games, so your sort of service model layer, and then DoD game items, so we have that sort of whole inheritance for that. So I've sort of tried to split some stuff up so that you can make sense of it a little bit better. What I'm actually going to do is just show you the actual view now in Eclipse here. So we've got the sort of DoD, we've got DoD game, and then we've got DoD game items. So just as a bit of a look at it, so if you look at this, we've got a sort of graphical user interface, we've got a bit of logic, some controllers, which effectively are going to do some routing and maybe a little bit of logic. So the logic layers are effectively sort of your controller. GUI, you've got your views, and then game here, you've got your sort of model part of it. So if I open up game logic, you can see it's quite large and it does the sort of brains of everything, I guess. And then DoD game items, so this is our inheritance that's going on. And yeah, I think that's effectively it for this lab. I hope that's made some sense. It's a good idea to have a little look at the sort of how you should design architectures. I hope this has been useful for you. Continue on to lab 3. We're going to get into some coding. There's going to be quite a lot of it. I hope you can follow along, and I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you very much.